Greetings, heroes. Coming at you live. It is I, your friendly neighborhood Rabbi John Carrier, and I am here with the Jew Curious Show, a live streaming show here on Twitch and Facebook Live and YouTube Live simultaneously. And I already see my friend Trig is here. Good morning, kids. Hope your weather is better than mine. Well, it's a good question. I don't know what your weather's like, but it's about par here. We're in the midst of June gloom here in Southern California, which is the June version of May gray, I'm told. I don't know what rhymes with July, but hopefully it'll be a little bit nicer and not too hot. KG Wilcox is here from sunny and 90 Philadelphia. Taking a little sip of the morning move juice. Good morning, Cara Amelie. And Trig says it is cold where she is. I believe she's in Nevada, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, we're going to just turn on the camera. That's only fair. All right, there's my face. There's my face on the internet. Sorry, internet. In any case, welcome to the Jew Curious Show. This is a show where Jew Curious people of all kinds are welcome to come and learn with us here and also ask any questions at all. Any question you've ever wanted to ask a rabbi but have been afraid to ask on any topic, I'm happy to give an answer. I'm not an expert in all topics, to be sure. I do enjoy studying about Judaism and passing on what I've learned to other people, just things about Torah, things about our traditions, customs, Jewish law, recipes, things like that. I'm still mid-coffee here this morning. Wow, everybody is popping in at once. Good to see you here. Christy Scroggins coming in from San Bernardino, where it is a beautiful day. She says, not trying to brag. All right, sunny, probably 30 Celsius, where Cara Amelie is. I think that's warm. I hear that's warm. That's right. Trig is in the desert of Washington State. I don't know why I thought Nevada. Maybe it's the trigger SNV. Okay. So, in any case, welcome to the Jew Curious School. If you are planning to convert to Judaism, want to get a handle on what it is you're getting yourself into, if you've been Jewish your whole life, but you're curious about why we do the things that we do, if you are firmly committed to another tradition, but you want to know more about the, Hebrew roots of your own faith, or if you're just trying on a bunch of different spiritual paths to see which one's right for you, this is a place where you can learn what you'd like to learn or what you need to learn. Sometimes you don't like to learn that stuff, but you need to learn it. In any case, I'm happy to be here. I've been doing this for about study and not doing live streaming on the internet. That hasn't existed for very long. But I've been learning about Judaism for about 20 years now. Became Jewish myself about 19 years ago. Became a rabbi just over 5 years ago. And the door was sort of held open for me the whole time. Wise, generous teachers, some rabbis, some not, most not, in fact. But people were very encouraging and kind to me all along the way. So I'm here to pay it forward however I can. So whatever questions you have, feel free to throw them into the chat. And if you're joining us on another platform like Facebook Live, welcome. Really glad to have you here. If you're joining us on YouTube Live, I used to haunt YouTube Live, for a couple of months. I just find Twitch is a better native platform for streaming, a little bit less buffery based on my own equipment, internet connections, what have you. So everybody's welcome to join in the chat. I will say if you have a particular question you'd like to ask, please join us on Twitch, if at all possible. So just go to twitch.tv/Jew Curious. Should have the link in the description wherever you're watching this. And come over here. And I'll also ask that you consider following us on Twitch, whether you're a Twitch person, or Twitch folks, I don't know, you do you, hero, wherever you are, if you'd come over to Twitch and follow us on Twitch, I'd be much obliged. The reason for this is we are pushing 40 followers right here, and once we hit 50, it unlocks a whole bunch of features for the people watching here on Twitch. This gives us sort of Twitch affiliate status, if you will. And Lord knows I'm not doing this to make money. As one of my rabbis says, one of my teachers says, like, if you're getting into this business to make money, this is the wrong business for you. Not only ethically, but you're going to be sorely disappointed. In any case, But becoming affiliate unlocks different features in the chat, lets us archive recorded videos for longer, things like that. So a little bit like an NPR pledge drive right now. Please come to twitch.tv/Jew Curious. Look up above the video. There's a little purple button, at least on my screen, it's purple. If you're, it might be different on your screen, but it will have a little picture of a heart on it. So hit that heart, show us some love, and we'll be happy to continue learning with you. Yum a dum dum dum. Okay. Nothing like a little Folgers to wake up in the morning. That's how you say it, right? Folgers? Folgers Crystals? Okay, let's see. I'm going to turn off the music here. Boop-a-doo. Later on, Pretzel Rocks. Thanks for the intro, Chill Beats. Folgers, like the Dodgers here in Los Angeles. Don't have my other cap on, not my Dodgers cap lately. Alrighty, let's see. Let's go back to that screen where I can see what the heck is going on. And today we're going to be talking about the Torah portion of the week. If you're not familiar with this, Jewish folks follow what's called a fixed lectary or fixed lectionary. I think it's a fixed lectionary in theological terms, where we have a cycle of reading from the Torah. That's the first 5 books of Moses in, most editions of the Bible that contain a Hebrew part. So the first 5 books of Moses, we read the entire thing every year. So we break it up into weekly chunks called Parashat, or Parshiot is the plural. And we have the Parashat Hashavua, that's the weekly Torah portion. And this week's Torah portion is a doozy. And I know I've said that about other Torah portions before, but this is actually a critical turning point in the narrative of the Torah. But I'll just go back to what the whole fixed lectionary thing is. What's cool about this is that every Jewish congregation around the world pretty much is reading the same thing any given Shabbat or Monday or Thursday. Those are Torah reading days as well. But in a given week, every Jewish congregation in the world is reading the same thing. So we are literally Jews all over the world on the same page, in a manner of speaking, literally / figuratively. So, and there's a little bit of variation sometimes in like the land of Israel that with the calendar and the 2-day yontif, it sort of varies by a week, but then it snaps back into place. And so this week's Torah portion is called Shlach Lecha, which is just one of my favorite Torah portions to say, as opposed to last week, which was Bahalotcha, which I think, like, and if anybody could say that correctly, you should ordain that person. But this week, Shlach Lecha, which means send for yourself, is about spies. I like to think of them as scouts. It's a little bit less cloak and daggery. Some connotations of violence there, but they're usually referred to as spies because they go and espy what's in the promised land. And so we'll get to that in a minute. Just want to give some shout outs to my good friends, KG Wilcox from Philadelphia, Cara Amelie, welcome. Nice to have you here. Christy Scroggs from gorgeous and sunny San Bernardino, California, in the empire that is inland. And Trigger Sniv is here from the desert of Washington State. Very glad to have you here. So let's see. Cara Amelie says, I try to say in C because if I forget it, if I don't use it every day. K Dixie says, California Sunshine says hi. Welcome to K Dixie, longtime supporter of the Jew Curious show. And it's nice to see familiar faces. But look, if you've never been here before, happy to have you here. Welcome. Really glad that you could join us. And I'll just say, if you're shy about getting in the chat, if you just feel like lurking, that's cool too. It's like going in the synagogue, sitting in the back, listening to what's up. You might not, necessarily want to say hello. That's fine. However, I'll say if you want to chime into the chat, you have never met a nicer group of people chatting online. The internet can sometimes be a rough and tumble place. There are bullies, there are trolls. Here, not so much. Probably the kindest group of people I've ever had the privilege of learning Torah with. And every once in a while we get to, Joker comes in joking around, somebody comes in just to be rude. It is the internet after all. And my friends here will attest I am quick on the band hammer for that kind of nonsense. So I want to learn compassionately with everyone who has sincere questions and is really here to learn. If you're here to troll, kaboosh, gone. So just so you know my policy, just to keep it safe and friendly for everyone. So let's see. Trigger says hello from my salon chair. That sounds salon perfect to me. I'm here in my like rickety wooden chair. K Dixie says hello from my KG Wilcox. Hi from my desk. All right. So let's see what is going on in the world. Michael Pacheco here is from his kitchen. Welcome from your kitchen. I think you're from Colorado. Michael Pacheco is making Italian beans and bulgur with pesto. That sounds like a great way to live your life. I'm not going to lie to you, all that sounds delicious. So let's. I'm just going to check the wires here, see what's going on. Make sure that we are showing up live. Still trying to get the hang of this on the YouTube version of our streaming because I've got the thumbnail from last week's Parsha. That's kind of embarrassing, but the title says Shlach Lecha, so that's cool. Gonna go over to check our friends on the Facebook, all of our facists out there. Let's see what's going on here. This is good radio. All right. Nice to have you here on Shlach Lecha. Oh, whoop. I'm going to shut that down just because it's getting some audio interference. And what's going on? I'll say, like, look, wherever you are, feel free to say hi. Feel free to give us props up tops and also ask questions. Periodically, I'll check the chat on these other formats as well. Whoop. It's got some echo going on there. I should mute that junk. Okay. What do we have here? Welcome to live chat. Remember, boop, boop, boop. Got Daniel Martinez. Good morning, Daniel. Good to see you. Daniel Martinez says, lunchtime. What do you want from Whataburger? Lol. Okay. Very glad to have you here, Daniel. And Victoria Ann. Greetings, Rabbi. Greetings, Victoria. Nice to see you here. I'm going to pass on the Whataburger. Thank you very much. It is, I have fond memories of Whataburger growing up in East Texas. That was kind of our in and out, if you will. But I, generally speaking, have fond memories of cheeseburgers because not something I really get to eat much anymore. So sorry about that. Exodus 23:19. It's kind of hard and fast for me. So in any case, enjoy your Whataburger while you can. So I hear Whataburger got bought out by a non-Texas entity, and people are up in arms. It reminds me of a story. My father is retired, but his profession was a historian. I mean, he had some other professions I've talked about, but he was a historian. His PhD was on Texas history, and he told me about the time where, they wanted to, back in the old days in Texas, they wanted to move the capital from Austin to Houston because it started off in Austin for whatever reason. I think that was convenient at the time. Houston clearly became a much greater center of commerce and influence and being on the coast and all that stuff. They wanted to move the capital of Texas from Austin to Houston, and the Austinites wouldn't have it. And they surrounded the city with cannons pointing inward. And they said, okay, if you try to take our, all of our charter documents and whatnot out of the city, we will disagree with you, they said, standing next to cannons. So that's how Texas does politics sometimes. And that's, I hope nobody tries to surround a Whataburger with cannons. That's just just let it happen. There'll be other good Texas food. Fried okra, I'm still into that pretty much. There's a lot of barbecue I don't eat anymore unless I make it myself. But fried okra, I am all upon the fried okra. I hated it when I was a kid, but I can't get enough of it now. So anyway, I hope I'm not making you too hungry. We're going to start talking about the Torah portion of the week in any second now. K. Dixie shares, it seems that some rabbis in Israel are on Parashat Korach. That is true. Like I said, sometimes in the land of Israel, based on how holidays fall out in a given year, the Parshiot drift from one week, and Parashat Korach is next week. And so there's a little bit of a diversion, bifurcation going on. But then it in a couple weeks, it sort of snaps back into place, and we're all on the same page again. So Cara only says, got to get food. Sorry about that. So going back to, let's see, where were we up here in the chat? Lol, Infinite Rabbi. That's my sound loop going on. Well, let's see. Michael Pacheco says, "Yep, and almost kosher except the pesto. I forgot Barilla doesn't have a hechsher. So just look for something that you're not mixing dairy and meat together. Some people are fine with doing kashrut by ingredients on the label. It just depends on your particular path, whether you insist upon a hechsher or not. If you're bringing food to somebody else, and always find out like what their deal is, so you can honor their path for kashrut. We got J1 Brown here. Hello from Dublin via Antibes, south of France on holidays. So studying Hebrew, but need suggestions for books that will help get me better reading it. All right, great to see you here, Jay Brown from Ireland. I've seen you here before. Well, I haven't seen you here before. I've seen you on YouTube before, but glad to have you here on Twitch. Make sure if you're joining us on Twitch that you follow us on Twitch. It's just a little click of the button, and it helps us out quite a bit. I'll say my favorite book for learning how to read Hebrew is, let's see, or if you're just starting out, this may be a little bit elementary for you, but let's see if I have it on the shelf over here. Okay, this is my favorite, especially if you're learning how to sound out Hebrew from a prayer book. This is my favorite text. We use this when I'm teaching in the Miller Introduction to Judaism program. I've used it outside that program as well. It's called Aleph Isn't Tough. It's a little pun because Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Taf is the final letter, but it says Aleph Isn't Tough. Ha 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 ha. Little Hebrew dad joke there. An Introduction to Hebrew for Adults, Book 1 by Linda Motzkin, and it's Motzkin. It's put out by the URJ Press, and this is my favorite text for learning the alphabet, learning how to sound it out with your face, and it teaches it in a very accessible way, gives you lots of practice exercises. And not only is this used in the Miller Introduction to Judaism program, I used it for a student of mine who was a bar mitzvah student, but his family, for whatever reason, didn't start his bar mitzvah. That's the fun of life, folks. It didn't start his bar mitzvah preparation until just like a year out. And sometimes kids go to Hebrew school for years before their bar mitzvah. This kid didn't, and spoke zero Hebrew, didn't know the Aleph from the Bet, like didn't know the Hebrew alphabet at all. And in a year's time, starting out with this book, and he's a smart kid and a lot of practice, and he has a good ear for tune, which helps. Went from knowing not a single letter of the Hebrew alphabet to chanting his entire Haftarah really, really well. And I could tell, like, the way he was doing it, it wasn't just from memorizing the recording of it. He was actually reading it with the trope, reading the trope off the page, and he nailed it. And that's why this book has a special place in my heart, because it, not only is it taught in great programs like the Miller Intro to Judaism program, but it's also personally helped me help somebody else learn Hebrew very quickly. So that's my favorite book to recommend. If you're looking more for that, but that's more like prayer book Hebrew and Torah Hebrew. It's where you have access to all the vowels and things like that. It's very helpful. Beyond that, if you're looking to like read a newspaper, it's just going to take a lot of practice, because modern Hebrew in documents online and newspapers and books and things like that, thank God they use punctuation these days, unlike in the Torah scroll. But if you're just reading a newspaper in or from Israel, there's no vowel marks that are clear, but you learn to get the hang of it by context. So let's see. Does Aleph Isn't Tough get you to text comprehension without nikud? It absolutely does not. I'll say that. It's more for phonetic decoding, by which I mean, can I look at a prayer book and sound it out? Or can I look at a prayer on the page that has nikud, that has like the little dots and vowels and stuff in it? Can I make those sounds with my face? That's, I think, step one. And especially people learning, as adults, that's where I started out. It's only, if you're looking at text comprehension without vowels, without nikud, without those things, without the little phonetic symbols on them, that for me took, graduate level Hebrew classes, or rather undergrad level Hebrew classes that I was taking in graduate school to catch up, and just a lot of practice. I think what is helpful, what I found helpful, just doing some brushing up and things like that. Duolingo has actually a really good program. If you have a smart device, and if you're watching live streaming video on the internet, chances are you also possess a smartphone of some sort. I don't know about their desktop platform, but Duolingo it's a free app that you can use to learn lots of different languages. And I found their Hebrew app to be really helpful. And this is, lately I've been brushing up on my Hebrew. I read a lot. I read a lot of texts from like Mishnah and Talmud and Halacha, but I need practice with my just reading newspaper Hebrew. So I go to Duolingo, and that's been really helpful brushing up. So Cara Amelie says desktop Duolingo is great. We got Weather Freak 513 says, hi Kay, thanks. Answered my question. Any particular channel? I'm just going to go up. It seems like I missed a lot of stuff in the chat. So let's see. Someone asked another question here earlier that I want to answer, sort of a leftover, maybe not a leftover exactly, but carryover from yesterday. Let's see. Somebody was asking, KG Wilcox was asking a question. If you are not Zahar, can you wear pants? I wear pants. Does Beged Ish still apply? So Beged Ish, when they talk about Beged Ish means dressing like a man. And there is some basis in, I think, in the Shulchan Aruch that many traditional communities follow today, that, people should dress according to their gender, meaning men shouldn't dress like women and women shouldn't dress like men. Again, this is a medieval interpretation or a fixing of law codes based on interpretations of the Talmud and the Mishnah and other legal scholars and things like that. So in the 17th century, Rav Yosef Karo and Rav Moshe Isserles fixed their rules for how to behave as Jews in their communities in the 1600s, and said that, okay, men do these things, women do these things, and never the twain shall meet, and they shouldn't dress like each other either. And those are the rulings that they made for the stability of their communities at the time. And so in communities that follow that interpretation of halakha, then people, women typically don't wear pants. Or I've seen in traditional communities, women may wear pants. Like if they're out jogging or something, they'll wear jogging pants, but they'll wear a skirt over it to make sure that, they're in a skirt as well as pants. And you don't see men wearing skirts. And so that's a part of rigid gender identity that's built into that community. If you're asking me, can a woman wear pants? Lots of women wear pants. Lots of Jewish women wear pants. And I'll say, it really depends on the Jewish community that you're a part of, how fundamentalist they are. And I say it's good to follow the norms of the community that you're in. But if you don't feel seen in a particular community, maybe that's not the right community for you. So yes, there are traditional communities where women do not wear pants. It's considered verboten, and I don't know what language that is. But let's say they may wear pants, but they'll wear a dress on top of the pants. So figure out what the customs are of your community that you are comfortable in, and it's nice to be kind of in conformity with that, because it creates a kind of solidarity among the people who are there. Am I going to go around throwing paint on women wearing pants? I am not. So there are places like that. You can, get a rock thrown at you in Mea Shearim, but that's Mea Shearim. So that shouldn't be representative of the whole Jewish world, in my opinion. So let's see. Susan Bird, it's Susan Bird. Learn Hebrew in 6 weeks by Milko Schaefer is helpful too. Very, very good. Gonna see what else I'm missing in the chat. This is going by so quickly. Can't keep up with you guys. So that's the problem of creating a great community, is that people start talking. Aleph isn't tough. Let's see. The sound component of the book is available on YouTube. So there is a sound component for Aleph isn't tough on YouTube. That's great. let's see, something I've been thinking a lot lately, and we will get to the Parashat Hashavua in just a minute, I promise. I've been thinking a lot lately. Somebody was asking me about what's next for the Jew Curious School, and just to catch people up who aren't familiar, we started the Jew Curious show about a year ago, about the end of last October. Started this thing called the Jew Curious School, so that people who are kind of in this Jew Curious community, if they want to take their learning to the next level, we created an online school for that, where we have sort of an introduction to Judaism level, like a 101 level class, just to cover all the bases. It's it's about it's about an inch deep and a mile wide, in a sense that it covers a lot of ground about Judaism. And then we have some more intermediate courses on different topics. We do a Parashat Hashavua class, which is like what we're doing right now, but a lot more focused. And we actually wrestle with the text and downloadable text sheets and stuff. The community aspect is incredible. So just if you're curious about that, I would check out jewcurious.school/info. And that's a good way to find out about that. But somebody was asking me what's next. Like, we built a great platform. We've got, pushing 100 hours of different video lessons in there recorded, in addition to our weekly live stuff. But what's next is I really want to build out the Hebrew component of it. I want to build out a way for people who are there to work on their Hebrew. Been talking to a few different experts. Been talking to one rabbi who wants to partner, and I want to partner with her, just trying to make that work. But also just some basic videos on Aleph Bet. So I think that's going to be kind of the focus of the summer, once we finish up recording our Introduction to Judaism class, is building out that Hebrew component as well, possibly with resources like Aleph Isn't Tough. I have to talk to them, figure out what the licensing requirements are, and we'll see. So let's see. Trigger Sniff says, "I'm on the edge of my seat, Rabbi." I don't know. I didn't mean to push you there to the edge of your seat. We should probably talk about Shlach Lecha. Woot, so exciting. Search on YouTube using book title "Aleph Isn't Tough." Can get you the link in the Jew Curious School. Great. So I'm just going to put that link here in the chat. Let's see. For anybody who wants to follow about that, that just explains exactly what it is, explains what kind of commitments required, and also explains that, look, if you have a month to try it out. If you don't like it, no harm, no foul. So just see if it's for you. So let's jump into it. The Torah portion of the week is Shlach Lecha, and this means send out for yourselves. So God's instruction to Moses and then Moses' instruction to the people is, okay, we got 12 tribes here. Every tribe pick a representative who is going to scout the promised land. Now, a little bit of backstory. Don't know if you knew this, but we left Egypt. We left Egypt back around Passover. No, it was actually about a year ago Passover, just in the terms of the narrative of the Torah. And so we've been marching for about a year now. Took us about a year to walk from Egypt to the edge of Canaan, like just looking over the border, by way of Har Sinai. Took a little stop off in Mount Sinai to get the Torah. Kept walking. It just was describing the second Passover, so we know that a year has elapsed. So a year, not too bad for walking, for like a couple of million people to walk from Egypt to the border of Israel. And so now it's time to go scope it out. You don't just, one does not simply, One does not simply walk into, oh gosh, if I'm going to quote the Lord of the Rings, I really should get it right. That place where Sauron lives, Mordor. One does not say, as what's his name said, one does not simply walk into Mordor, right? One does not simply barge into the promised land. And not that it's Mordor, I'm just quoting a movie poorly. One does not simply walk into Canaan. You got to go send out scouts, because yes, this is the land that God promised to Avram and to his successors, but there are people there. And some of those people might be cool with us being there. Some of those people might not be cool with us being there, and you should go scout it out. So pick 12 spies, one from each tribe, and they went into the land to espy it. And then they came back, And they were, let's say reviews were mixed. Because at first they were like, yes, this land is dope. It's flowing with milk and honey, and it's got fruit. The fruit is gigantic, right? The grapes are the size of grapefruits. That's why they call them grapefruits, I think. The grapes are the size of grapefruits, and they brought back samples. You know, they had all these, like, look at the size of this fruit. But here's the deal. You know who eats giant fruit? Giants do. There are giants. There might be giants. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I was trying to look up if the they might be giants has any relation to Parashat Shlach Lecha, undetermined as of yet. But they say, you know, there are giants there, and these are the Rephidim. These are like the giants that are mentioned in Genesis are still hanging out there, and we are terrified. And to a person, all the spies, you know, were afraid. But not all of them reacted the same way. Most of them did. Most of them said, like, look, this, yes, thank you. This is the promised land. We're really grateful not to be slaves anymore, but we don't want to go there. Let's just settle on this side of the border, and things will be fine. And 10 of the 12 spies kind of ruled this way. And 2 of the spies, Joshua and Caleb, or Yehoshua and Caleb, said, look, dudes, we're scared too. But God promised our family this land, and God wouldn't bring us out here so that we would reject this promise. So, yes, we're scared, but we should go anyway because we got this, right? And so they took a vote. Of course, it was 10-2 as to whether to, 10-2 against going into the promised land. And God was displeased. And this is one of the not zero times in the Torah where God's like, all right, I'm going to scrap this whole thing. If you're not going to accept this promise, then forget you guys and the horses you didn't ride in on. And I'm just going to wipe out this whole population. And Moses appealed to God and said, look, God, we've been here before, whole golden cow thing. Look, not for us, not for me, but for you, right? What's your reputation going to be as a God? What are the Egyptians going to say? That you took this entire population of slaves out just to kill them in the desert? Have some mercy. Now, so God had mercy. So God didn't kill everybody. I think the 10 spies bought it, but like not everybody gets wiped out. But God has a different plan and says, okay, you went along with, you went along with it. You took a vote, very democratic of you. You have voiced that you are not able to inhabit this land. And I forget, there was some motivational speaker out there who had the quote, if you think you can or think you can't, you're right. But God started this kind of theory first. If you think you can't take that land, you know what? You're right. You spent your entire life in slavery. You spent your entire life subjugated, but also taken care of, right? Had other people sort of defending you while they were taxing you with heavy labors. And you don't know what it's like to totally fend for yourselves, and your hearts betray as much. So here's what we're going to do. Anybody who was an adult when you left Egypt, 20 or above, does not get to go into the promised land. But and so what you're going to do is you're just going to keep marching. You're just going to keep wandering through the wilderness. And you're going to march until everybody who was 20 and above passes away. But anybody who was below 20, or any children born along this journey, they will get to enter the promised land, right? Because they were just children when they left Egypt. They hadn't been fully formed as adults in slavery, and maybe they have the heart to settle the land. And so you're going to walk. And we wound up walking for 40 years, right? Before this Parsha happened, that whole 40 years in the wilderness thing wasn't a thing, right? It was a year. It was like a little more than a year. But because the spies were scared, let me take that back. Everybody was scared. But when they expressed that fear in deciding not to take up God's promise, that's when we were sentenced to 40 years wandering in the wilderness, right? Sometimes a generation has to pass away before real change can happen. Now, the 2 spies who were scared but voted for going into the land anyway, they were the two people who left Egypt as adults who got to enter the promised land, Joshua and Caleb. And Joshua wound up being kind of the leader of the people after Moses, because Moses doesn't even get to go, right? But Joshua does, and Joshua leads the people into settling the land. And so I think one of the highlights, or one of the most crucial points of this story, is that courage is not about having no fear. You probably heard this from other sources as well, but I think this is the place in the Torah that demonstrates it most clearly. Courage is not about having no fear. Courage is about being just as scared as everybody else, but acting on principle anyway, about acting with faith anyway. Just like Nachshon ben Aminadav, like everybody got to the edge of the sea and God said, walk into the water, it'll split. And the tribes literally fought with each other not to be the first ones in the water until Nachshon from the tribe of Yehuda jumps in the water and starts walking, and then God splits the sea. Right? He was just as scared as everyone else, but his principles and his faith superseded that fear in his actions. And so, yeah, there are giants in the world. And I think I did a YouTube video on this a couple years ago. There are giants in the world, and everybody's scared of them. But the only way to conquer giants is one of the people to be scared standing up to the giants. And so that, and if you don't, then not only are you doomed to not fulfill that promise, but the people who are looking to you as an example are doomed not to fulfill that promise. And so that is one of the most important lessons of this parsha. It is a turning point of our narrative as a people. It made the difference between walking for a year and walking for 40 years, which is a long time. And there's one more thing that I want to make sure we learn from this parsha, and this is kind of buried a little bit. It's not stated explicitly in the parsha, but it's another critically important thing about understanding Jewish culture and Jewish religious practice and Jewish liturgical practice, how we pray, and that is the concept of minyan. Or minyan, I should say. Should pronounce in like the more modern Hebrew minyan, because when I say minyan, people think of that movie with like the Twinkie people, like the little people who looked like Twinkies that have one eye or two. It's in transliteration M-I-N-Y-A-N. It's not M-I-N-I-O-N, or Minion, the character played by Tony Shalhoub in the Spy Kids movie. I assure you, it's Mr. Minion. I assure you, it's Mr. Minion now. One of my favorite lines of that whole movie. Sorry, that came out when my kids were little, so place in my heart, Spy Kids. So the concept of minyan is minyan means counting. In how it's used in Jewish law around liturgy is it means quorum, right? We have a certain quorum for certain prayers that we have. So Carmelly says, "Don't remind me about the minions." Trigger Sniff says goodbye. Duty calls. Hope everyone has a beautiful day. You too, Trig. Naya Shashi is here. Hi, Chrissy and Trig. Ruthie's in the house. Kay Dixie shares Berman House sells Olive Isn't Tough. Also available as a download. Very nice. So let's see. Naya Shashi's in the house. Says, "Hey, family. I've been missing some chat here." For lots of study. All right. Very glad to have you here. So getting back to the topic of minyan, not minions. And so when there are certain Jewish prayers or certain liturgical activities that we can only do if we have a quorum of 10 adults. And the things that this includes, it includes the Baruch Hu, that sort of call to prayer in the beginning of the Shema part of the service. In the morning and in the evening, if people say Baruch Hu et Hashem Hamavorach, etc., and people like stand up, face the ark, and they bow. You can't say that unless you have 10 Jewish adults present. What else? Anytime you say the Kaddish, you can only say that whether it's the Chatzi Kaddish or the full Kaddish or the mourner's Kaddish. We typically only say that in synagogues if we have 10 Jewish adults present. And what else? We don't read Torah if we don't, you could sit there and you could read it, but we don't chant Torah out loud or Haftarah unless we have at least 10 Jewish adults present. And I'm trying to, Kedusha. You don't do the Kedusha. So the Kedusha is, or you don't recite or repeat the Amidah out loud, including the part with the Kedusha, that sort of second page after the first two blessings. And what do these things have in common? They all have in common this overt act of sanctifying God's name. So there's lots of prayers you can say. You could say whatever prayers you want privately. If you're praying with a community, there are certain prayers that we don't say unless we have 10 or more Jewish adults present. And so the question I got last week on this show was, why 10? And so I said, all right, just wait 1 week and we'll talk about it, because it comes from this Parsha, right? Why does it take 10 people to count in a minyan, or to say you have a quorum? And so it's roundabout related to the 10 spies, right? And there were 12 spies. Like, so what's special about these 10 spies? They were the punks, right? These are the spies who said, I'm scared, not going to do it. You can, here's 40 more years, everybody. Let's talk about collective punishment. So how do we get from these 10 faithless individuals to the 10 people that we need to say our holiest prayers, right? Maybe we should make it 2, because because there were 2 guys who were faithful. So maybe it should be 2 instead of 10, right? To incline toward the good rather than the bad. Well, the rabbis in the Talmud, I think it's in Masechet Megillah, I want to say 23b, I believe, kind of goes through why do we need 10 for a minyan. And so they take a look at, okay, for things where we lift up God's name, there is a verse in Leviticus, I believe it's 22:23, that says, God says, I will have my name exalted among Bnei Yisrael, right? My name will be exalted among Bnei Yisrael. And so where do we exalt God's name? Among Bnei Yisrael. And so they said, okay, wait a minute. Does this mean that every Jew in the world has to be present in order to say these prayers? No, that's impossible, right? Even if you got all, let's say it's roughly 16 million Jewish people in the world. I kind of rounded up to 20 just because of all the other people who are sort of with the Jewish people at this point. But let's say there's 16 million technically Jewish people in the world. To get them all in one place, you couldn't even hear each other from one end to the other. So it doesn't seem practical to have these prayers said only when every Jew in the world is present in one place. There's very few cities in this world that have that many people, that can hold that many people in them, and they certainly can't hear each other and all show up at the same time. So let's say God says, sanctify my name among Bnei Yisrael. So within, some proportion of that. And so the rabbi said, well, what do we know about this among? Like, what can teach us what's this fraction of Jewish people that's required for saying these holy prayers? So they see that word betoch, it says betoch, and they say, oh, there's another place where it says toch, and they look in it's in Parashat Korach, next week's Parsha, chapter 16. I want to say verse 21 or thereabouts. Just look for it. It says, how will I be cursed among God says, how will I be cursed among this congregation? Right? It says that word among again, but it also uses the word edah, or congregation. And people says, okay, well, so we see that it's a fraction. It's not everybody is being difficult with Korach. Just an edah, whatever an edah is, that's whatever we can define as an edah. That's the minimum amount of people needed to lift up God's name. And where do we learn from the word edah? It's in this parsha, Shlach Lecha, Bamidbar, or Numbers chapter 14, verse 27, where it uses the word congregation, edah, when describing the 10 spies. God calls them a faithless congregation, or a wicked congregation. So the rabbis look at that and say, it says congregation, edah, there's 10 people involved there, And so the minimum size that we could call a congregation amongst which God's name would be lifted up is 10. So I know this is kind of, down the rabbit hole, gets really into the weeds about halacha, but this is how the rabbis deduced that the minimum number of people you need to constitute a congregation for lifting up God's name is 10 people. And, even if you could follow this logic, it's like a double gezerah shava. It's a gezerah shava is a hermeneutical principle of deriving the meaning of one word from another context in which it's used. Still, you wind up at this place of, why are we basing the minimum number of people to lift up God's name on the 10, I'm trying to use less coarse language here, in general in my life, on these 10 wackadoos, right? These 10 cowards. Like, why would we base our holiest activity on that? What I learned from this, and what I like to pass on to you, is that, look, for a minyan, for a congregation, you don't need 10 saints, right? In fact, if you follow this logic, God picked the number for a congregation based on the 10 worst people in town that day, right? These are the guys who got us 40 years instead of one, to say that, look, you can have a congregation even among cowards, even among the worst people in town, can make a congregation, right? This isn't to say congregation should be bad. It says congregations can form even in places where people are weak, right? Because frankly, how do you get stronger, right? How do you go from the lowest of the low and elevate your life while elevating God's name? If you can get 10 people together, that's enough to begin to approach divinity, right? Otherwise, we might think, look, we can't have a congregation in town unless we can find 10 saints, 10 scholars, 10 rabbis, 10 flawless individuals. There's an old joke that says, 9 rabbis can't make a minyan, but 1 butcher can, right? Because if you have 9 rabbis, that's not a minyan. But if you have 9 of anybody and 1, butcher, baker, candlestick maker comes along, boom, you got minyan. And so this teaches us that every adult in the community counts when it comes to doing holy work. And for me, that's the most powerful lesson of this week's Parsha. You don't have to be a saint to participate in holy life, to help make holy spaces for other people. Anybody can do it. Even if you're at the lowest of the low, even if you, even if you once saw holiness and you blinked and you opted out, you can still form a congregation that helps build up God's name. And that is there to teach each of us that each one of us counts. Each one of us can help, no matter what our errors were in the past. Everybody can make tshuva, everybody can grow and help other people grow. And so that's what I wanted to get across today in this week's Torah portion. Not only is courage about having the same fear as everybody else, but acting differently, but also, even if you don't have courage, you can still participate and help build a community that, God willing, someday will help you have that courage to make better decisions, to act more according to your principles. We got to start somewhere, and everybody gets to start somewhere. So that's what I wanted to get across today for this week's Torah portion. Really appreciate people being here learning with me today. And let's see what's going on in the chat. Let's see. Great to have all of our friends here. I'll say a real quick pause for station identification. This is the Jew Curious Show. This is a place where Jew curious people of all kinds can come and learn together. I started this based on the principle, a couple years ago. I started thinking about, what are my core beliefs? What have I learned about Judaism and the Jewish people over the last 20 years? What has it meant in my life? And I came to sort of these core principles, and that is everybody everywhere wants a life of greater meaning, wants to experience a meaningful life. Everyone everywhere wants more joy in their life. Nobody's like, I want less joy, thank you very much. I think everybody could benefit from having more joy in their life. Also, everyone everywhere benefits from greater human connection, getting together with other people. And finally, everyone everywhere can benefit from growth. Not everybody is seeking. Some people like their life exactly the way it is, but I think everybody can benefit from personal growth. Not being better than anybody else, but better than you were yesterday. And I think Jewish wisdom, Jewish traditions, Torah, just getting to know Jewish people can give you that life of greater meaning, joy, connection, and growth. And I think it should be accessible to everyone everywhere. And that's why about a year ago I started the Jew Curious Show podcast. That's why about a year and a half ago I put out my book, The Promised Life. And that's why I make all the YouTube videos that I make, and that's why I'm doing my live streaming today. So if this appeals to any of you, you are absolutely in the right place, and this show is for you. So a couple of ways that you can stay connected with this is, first, I'd like to recommend the Jew Curious Community Center. This is kind of a private, lovingly tended, carefully guarded, troll-free zone on Facebook where you can meet other Jew Curious people just like you. Ask your questions, share your concerns. Lately, we've had a lot of people in that community share that they were going to a synagogue service for the first time and that they were nervous and what should they do and what should they expect. And everybody's there cheering them on and giving them advice. And then afterwards, notice this week, somebody says, hey, I went to that service and here's what it was like, and told all the other people, so that if anybody else out there was on the fence, like, oh, I'm scared to go to the synagogue for the first time, I'm not making fun, like I was there too. And sees examples of other people growing in ways that they want to grow. And so that's why I put that together. Just go to jewcurious.show. Here's the website for you, jewcurious.show/JCC, as in Jew Curious Community Center, and get connected to that. And want to put in one more request. If you like the cut of our jib, if you like how our jib is cut, I don't know what a jib is or why someone would cut it necessarily, but it's an expression in English, maritime, I guess. If you like what we do here, I highly would be much obliged if you would follow this channel on Twitch. If you're not watching us on Twitch, that's cool. You do you. Just jump over to twitch.tv/JewCurious and hit the follow button up at the top of this video. You may need to be registered, but I found Twitch is the easiest thing in the world to register for. And then you hit the follow button. That helps us build what is the first and I believe only channel for Jewish learning on the Twitch platform. Helps us build toward affiliate status, which unlocks all sorts of new features for people. Can't wait to get there. We're like 80% of the way there. Just need a little bit of help pushing us over the top. And so that's my humble request. Whether you follow us or not, I'll be here on a semi-regular basis. There's just there's some new stuff going on in the Carrier household coming up. Some new responsibilities for me potentially. I'm gonna keep a lid on it just until all the ink is dry and I know exactly what's what. But our live streaming schedule is probably going to change next week. So just keep coming back to this channel to see. There's a little widget on this channel that tells you when the next live stream is and counting down to it. Next week's schedule is going to be different. But for tomorrow, one thing I'm not changing is Fun Friday. So you've been with us all week. Maybe somebody's here new today. Tomorrow we're doing Fun Friday. And what Fun Friday is on the Jew Curious Show is like, so getting back to yichus, we were talking about yichus yesterday, which is sort of provenance or pedigree or roots, if you will. Twitch was originally a platform for live streaming video games, and still most of the content on Twitch is people playing video games while other people are watching them, which is entertaining for many folks, I guess. And I admit, like, I like watching people play video games too, especially when they're way better at those games than I am. So what we're doing tomorrow, Fun Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 noon Eastern, is I will still be a rabbi. I will still answer whatever Jewish questions people want to pop into the chat, but I will do so while playing probably Mario Kart. So I've tried this with a couple of different games, Mario Kart and Overcooked. Overcooked takes a little bit too much of my attention because it's like a timed thing and you're making burgers and pizzas and all sorts of stuff. Also, some of the food's not kosher that they ask you to make. It's good for a lesson on kashrut, hard for answering questions, but I find I can answer Jewish questions much easier when I'm playing Mario Kart. So if you want to see me going toe-to-toe with Bowser and Princess Peach in a go-kart or a motorcycle while answering Jewish questions. It's just a little fun that we have on Fridays to help wrap up the week. And so check us out on Fun Friday. You can ask me anything while I'm playing Mario Kart, and that starts at 9 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow, Friday, June the 28th, I guess that will be. So thank you for learning with me today. Really appreciate everybody hopping into the chat, sharing with each other your support, and just really delighted to be a part of this community and delighted that you are a part of this community. So join us tomorrow for Fun Friday. Tell your friends what we're going to be doing. We're going to have a blast. And until next time, heroes, peace.